Hey, welcome back to another package from China, because in this video we are going to be doing a chit chat regarding actually the best emulator console, AliExpress. In other words, what can you find on AliExpress and what are actually the ones you should consider picking up if you're searching something to play some old school retro emulation. There are a gazillion versions out there when it comes to the Chinese products, but in my opinion there are like a handful that are actually worth, let's say, picking up because of the price but also the overall quality. Yeah, it's a general problem. I mean, by general problem when it comes to, let's say, these products from China and a lot of, let's say, weird stuff. So I started reviewing all of them just to see what I were getting, and most of the time they just warn you all because a lot of these devices were really bad quality. However, if you're going to be paying like $50, $20, we cannot expect a lot from that. It's actually kind of interesting to see that you can just make something for that amount of money. And yeah, when it comes to quality, particularly SD card, that is like a problematic situation at the moment. When I started reviewing these products, they were using sometimes SanDisk or other familiar brands. They were like okay, but now they have like no brands at all. And those SD cards are a general problem. However, we do see them in all kinds of different, let's say, models with like a $90 one. However, that is something you need to take consideration when getting into this, that when it comes to quality, there will be a lot of problems. However, let's deep dive into it in this rabbit hole and let's have some fun. But if you're searching something cheap and easy to use, the 4K game stick, I must say this one was from Kinhank, never knew they was making one, but this was a stick I personally bought for $15 in sale. I need to point out it's in sale price. Yeah, and that's something you should wait some time because those sales are dropping the prices like to a ridiculous point. However, this was a game stick that had an issue with the SD card because it does still work, don't get me wrong, but it is possible like after a couple of reboots up, it just stops working. And the overall firmware was significantly improved with some modified version of Emulation, resulting having an overall very fun experience where these things are made with really old cheap chips. In other words, this thing doesn't run everything, but all the way up to 8-bit to, let's say, PlayStation 1 on native resolution seems to be working just fine. And these game sticks, if you're going to be picking up from AliExpress on sale, I think that's one of the best places to get them. I know there are some weird shady websites where they do a lot of marketing and selling them for way too much money. I understand some people they paid $60, even almost $100 for the same kind of stick. And what you're getting with this is most of the time, let's say, a very fun overall experience and have a lot of cool retro games. However, you can see that the controller does have some issues, and that's what I hate about these things, the cheap controllers. But yeah, we cannot really complain for $15 freaking dollars. The menu itself looks kind of similar to the Pandora's Box arcade boards, but this looks so much, let's say, more basic, and the overall experience was not that great because everything felt that had a little bit of a delay. Not the games itself, particularly this menu. We do have search option and some category system, so that part seems to be working just fine. But yeah, if you're going to be putting a lot of games on here, it's going to be very difficult to find all of your games. We do have a history list, but also favorites, so we can make a favorite list and just very easy boot up your favorite games through there. Nice. Pressing select and start will give you the option for language settings over here. And we have all kinds of different languages. Button sound can be changed out. We can just close it if you want to. Clear browser data, button configuration, restoring joystick. We can just map it in here. So it's kind of interesting with that it showcases what kind of controls are connected. So let's see. You release all buttons and wait for the button B. Okay. A. Even implemented a program for this, so that is just amazing. That is one of the easiest way I've ever set up a controller in this. No input lag of the audio, so emulation performance is quite good. So let's go into the supersonic mode where we're going to be running like crazy. Sometimes we do have a lot of screen tearing going on. I think it's personally that I think I see something, but no, it is just working like it's supposed to be. So when you're looking into this, it's kind of interesting, and overall emulation performance quite nice. For playing the beat 'em up games, D-pad is just working fine. So far so good, exit the game, and that's it. So example, I'm going to be booting it up again. If you want to go into loading time, going to be loading, and that's it. So when it comes to the quick load, quick save, I love it. So let's move on to the NES. And I have seen a lot of weird overall emulation, but so far the overall emulation performance is quite good. I don't notice any screen tearing or whatsoever. They implemented the turbo buttons. But yeah, one thing is for sure, if you want to play old school retro games, this is one of those best ways, simply because of the price point. Where this overall is, let's say, game stick wasn't good and cool idea. It runs on some backend of Android, and the overall input delay is not really noticeable for me at least. So when you're going to be actually playing this old school games, it's just a lot of fun. It's unfortunate of the controllers, but I think the reason is just of the really cheap price. It's unfortunate that it's not easy to set up some other controls. So, but still, it's a very cool and cheap way to experience a couple of games, and maybe from there you can go into the retro gaming or get something different when it comes to, let's say, playing games. But due to the price point where these things were like very expensive a couple of years ago, you can pick them up for like around $50 in the sale, and for that price I think we cannot really complain. But if you don't care about all those different platforms, you do have like these very cool, tiny, very cheap game stick devices that we can play, let's say only 8-bit in this case, having just a wireless configuration of a tiny dongle and two cool looking controllers. And this way we can just play all kinds of 8-bit games. You're going to be plugging this thing into your television and you're ready to go. But if you're going to be looking into the game list and everything, also the platform, this is the main menu actually when booting up the device. We have a user folder where we can load up or sideload different new games. But this thing is out of the box quite, let's say, extended for just a very cheap device. It's only 8-bit at this point, but you can see that we're having all kinds of different variations of games. And what is kind of cool is that they implemented a quick load and quick save feature where we can just store our games and go further later on, and an aspect ratio option. The question remains, how is the overall emulation quality? Because that's what it is. It's not FPGA emulation, so it will be one-on-one spot on with the original system. But I can tell you that it comes really close. We do have some weird stuff going on at the bottom part over there. So where the overall emulation is not perfect, I must say they did an amazing job. And for the money you're actually paying for stuff like this, yeah, for the money, we cannot really complain. But if you just want to play some Super Famicom, yep, they also made the SF900. And this is just a plug and play Super NES controller set with another HDMI stick. So where we don't have, like, say, an NES games now, we do have Super NES games, and I think that is pretty cool. The menu itself looks absolutely stunning when you're going to be checking out the Super NES. It's a similar idea with different kind of platforms, but they have like a graphical improvement over the 8-bit version. Besides getting the game list, you can see actually that the game list is quite basic, even a little bit more basic than the NES part, so that's kind of weird. But the Super NES version also contains the same kind of software when it comes to quick load, quick save, and also aspect ratio. So that is kind of interesting that they did use the same kind of style when it comes to that. And when you're looking at the performance when it comes to emulation, it's quite good. So let's go back to the scaling options, select start. Here you can see like we can make a quick save if you want to. It's quite nice. I'm going to give you the screenshot. Scaling up. Press resume again, start. And we're back with the aspect ratio. Okay, so next up let's try Desert Strike just to see one of my favorite games. If it's going to start about the chopper, get to the chopper, get to it now. Sorry, just needed to say that. But this game I played it so much as a child. It is a really fun game to play. It's not like a big series. I think you had Soviet Strike, Nuclear Strike. They ported it to the PlayStation 1, to the N64. But this thing on the Super Nintendo looked really cool. But here you can see like this game runs just fine. So this was more like a problem with a certain game. Still, like even now, I find it a little bit of a bummer that we have some issues with some games. So come on man, you can play 16-bit on freaking everything nowadays. Okay, so next up let's do a little bit on pinball. But I must say like I'm quite disappointed when it comes to the performance of the games. I was hoping that we're actually going to get like perfect gameplay. But sadly they completely messed it up. A lot of glitching here and there, and I find the games running quite choppy. And again, it's disappointing because you can see like nowadays we're having so many of these boxes stuff that runs Super Famicom just great. So nothing beats the original deal, that is just a fact today. And if you're a big fan of the Sega franchise, particularly the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive or the 16-bit era, also here they made a plug-and-play stick. Yep, if you just want to have that particular system, that is possible. With the menu looking completely different again, I'm guessing they are running on an Android backend or some kind of it. However, it's kind of interesting to see how this looks completely different, and now having only 16-bit games. The menu, you can see that is similar to the 8-bit and the 16-bit version, only it's more similar actually to the 8-bit, with the tiny preview at the left, no videos, just a pure picture to give you an idea what the game is. And yeah, so far you can see we do have alphabetic order, so that seems to be fine, but we don't have any search results or a search engine whatsoever. We do have the same folder, so we can sideload some games, which you can actually see over there if you're going to be putting them on an SD card. But let's take a close look at the overall performance from how it is with the Sega Genesis plug-and-play stick. Ow! Where I complain a lot in my videos regarding these, let's say, plug-and-play Android devices, because a lot of them had a lot of issues. However, there were a couple of them that I find still very cool nowadays, with the, let's say, gazillion devices they released throughout the years. It's absolutely nuts. And yeah, there were a lot of them, but there were like two particular ones I found quite interesting. And that's also the Super Console X lineup. It was the Cube, but also the Pro. Both were quite nice when it comes to that. So, particular one is the Cube version. We have the first edition, I think the most common one will the X3. And the X3 chip, I just love this thing, because where you cannot play everything like Wii, GameCube, PlayStation 2, but this is just perfect if you don't really care about those platforms. If you just want to get into the old school stuff, think about the 8-bit and 16-bit era, having different kind of handhelds. Also here we do have limitations, so one of the more familiar ones is even having like 1,000 of arcade games or Neo Geo games you can boot up and play. So when it comes to MAME and arcade, there we don't have the option to actually play Tekken or some more advanced games. But where I always like speak about limitations, we can still play a lot of cool stuff. Where I love these, let's say, basic boxes for 8-bit, 6-bit, PlayStation 1, you name it, you can just actually play them just fine. And the later systems where we do have upscaling options, or we're going to be deep diving in later on in this video, we don't have all of these options because these devices are not powerful enough. But for plug and play cheap solutions, yeah, this is just great when it comes to that. So N64 will always be a mixed bag with these low-end stuff, and in combination with Emulate 3.9, I think the emulation is just what it is. But some games are just playable, beside all the glitches and slowdowns. Just perfect. Music is great. But what I noticed, like this control I'm using now works way better. Another one on my list of favorite devices that are actually worth picking up is the Super Console X X3 Pro. The name already says it, I mean not the Pro, just the X3. This is actually the improved chip, or it's a little bit better power, so we do have overall better support. But what makes this thing one of my favorite ones is not this weird, let's say 8K Ultra HD shenanigans, because that is most of the time a lie. These games are not running on 4K, 8K and all those crazy things. So what you're actually getting with these devices sometimes is just some 1080p output. And as already said, like most of the games are just running on native resolution. However, when you're getting into this device, I did notice that the quality wise, this thing is quite nice. And with nice, I can actually say better, this thing feels like a really nice quality product because of the case. This gives like a more console feeling, having an on and off switch at the front, enough USB ports, and of course the two Wi-Fi antennas you can attach. So where we don't really need any Wi-Fi connection for playing actual games, but if you need to update the system, we can just do it fairly easy, having an option for an SD card and just the necessary ports to connecting this to an HDMI device. If it's a television or a monitor, if it has speakers and HDMI input, you can actually use this device without any problem. But what makes this thing actually pro, or why I actually just love this thing, is that it comes with a built-in storage device like a hard disk. You can swap it out with an SSD if you're going to be cloning the disk, but this is a super convenient way because you can slap in a 1-2 terabyte normal drive for not a lot of money and have like a lot of crazy storage. Particularly when it comes to emulation performance, you can combine this with some, let's say, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn and also PlayStation 1, and you have enough storage to store all of your games. And the way how this thing is configured, the overall quality, I was quite surprised by it. I just love this thing with the on and off switch, the nice case design, enough USB ports, great cooling and a 2.5 inch drive upgrade, and we can switch it out to a big one if you want to. It's great for 8-bit and 60-bit, and we do have, let's say, a little bit better performance when it comes to systems like Sega Dreamcast. But this is a great example where we do have a little bit more power than the previous model we discussed here in this video. This thing has a very cool overall, let's say, library of systems, with the newer Emulation having a little bit better options when it comes to emulators, a lot of new improvements, and it has like a significant upgrade of the other version, where the price range between both of the Cube and the Pro are very slim. So I think if you're going to be getting a Pro version like this, we have better performance, but also we have some cool features like the hard drive. That is absolutely a good thing if you want to emulate PlayStation 1, Dreamcast and Sega Saturn, because they take up so much space, and when an SD card it's not going to be enough, or if you're having like a 1 terabyte, I think these things don't even support a 1 terabyte SD card, it's going to be so much more expensive and it makes no sense whatsoever. And with a game like Assault Rigs, this was pretty damn a shame because it's such a cool game with funky music. And let's be honest, the music of the game is the soul of it. However, the story is kind of similar like with the Cube we'll be discussing. So yeah, we can actually play a lot of different systems, but PlayStation Portable struggles and many other devices too. So, but still, if you want to get something basic, but you do want to have like a cheap upgrade storage possibility, I think the X3 Pro combined with this cooling performance, this is absolutely a very cool device. And we do have options to actually play many different games. But again, the Pro is necessary with this, let's say, SATA drive in the inside if you want to play some PlayStation 1. You have like a massive library, we're going to be needing a lot of space, and SD cards are just not a good option because they're way too expensive when it comes to that. If you want to grab something plug and play from AliExpress, but you do want to have something that is capable of running more and has less limitations, this very strange looking 3D printed case is actually some of the things you can consider with the N100 mainboard in the inside, where they're using in China a lot of old parts when it comes to PCs. This is a brand new part so far, I understand. The case itself is debatable if you like it or not. However, this is a very interesting option, plug and play ready, and you can play actually thousands of different games. Yep, sliding it out, you can see they're using just a Batocera drive in here, a single slot of RAM, and having the N100, a brand new board. So that's absolutely cool with an active situation. But this is quite interesting because this is a board that has a lot of options when it comes to emulation itself. We do have some more options now, so don't expect like say supreme performance but super upscaling. Yeah, PlayStation 1 we can maybe do a little bit on upscaling. PlayStation 3 is in my opinion out of the question, and yeah, we do have overall better performance with Atomic Wave, having some better Dreamcast Saturn, and maybe you can even do a little bit on upscaling, and I think that is a very cool overall option with the N100. I wanted to do a little bit on upscaling or 720p, and the main reason is just wanted to see how far we can push it. Take note that the GPU of the Intels are not my favorite ones on board, with a simple reason, because these things do struggle. We can also lower to 480p, and also depending what kind of game you want to play, but some games are very easy to emulate and you can just even maybe get a little bit of a higher resolution going on. So next up, the GameCube, another great system with very nice titles. However, if you want to play some games with this, we can do a little bit of an upscaling. However, I've been testing it with 1080p, but this is way too much. And also depending what kind of game. If you have two-dimensional games, you can do a crazy upscaling where we're having like so three-dimensional games. We have, let's say, less overall performance when you're going to be upscaling to higher stuff. So if you're on a budget and we do want to have a little bit more options when it comes to emulation, this mini PC is a plug-and-play N100 solution. And of course, if you're going to be making it yourself, it's going to be so much more significant cheaper. So yeah, you can also very cheaply make yourself an own console, but that's a different story and also something for a different video. However, if you're going to be looking into China, they are selling these plug-and-play PCs with a Batocera drive built in, and they're exactly the same thing what you're going to do at home with an old PC. However, there they had like this super console-like lineup with all kinds of different mini PCs, including an old Xeon that had the option to play all kinds of cool stuff that we couldn't play before with those cheaper game boxes. On AliExpress you can find some sellers having i9s combined with an RTX card in the inside, like an 2060, 3050 Ti or even a 4060, and if you're seeing this video in the future there will be like a different cool version out there that can do some crazy stuff. So that is one of those cool stuff you can buy from AliExpress, and where they're selling it with a Batocera drive built in, or you just need to buy yourself one and add it to it. With the right specification list you can create yourself like a crazy powerhouse that can play all kinds of modern games but also retro emulation. It's portable, no restrictions, we can put it in the highest setting and everything set to the maximum level to make these games look absolutely stunning. They were actually selling this mini PC as the Super Console X G6, if I'm saying it correctly. That was the most powerful one you can get out of the box, and it can play all kinds of games through Batocera Linux and even do a little bit of a rendering resolution of 1080p, 2K or 4K. It was absolutely nuts. This thing was a complete powerhouse when it comes to that. If it's still for sale in the future, that is of course different. However, it doesn't really matter, because when you're getting this mini PC, you can just buy it separately, brand new, get yourself a 2TB drive, slap it in, and create yourself way cheaper a Super Console X. Many different ways, many different packages from China. Thank you all for watching. Consider subscribing, hit the little bell. Let me know in the comments what is going on. What is your favorite way to play games? Because you can buy real hardware or get yourself an emulation box from China. There are so many crazy ways to play, but this is like a top pick of different ways to play. And I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.